Hi, my name is Madeline, and I'd like to share with you today something that's really important as Christians, understanding idols and how they might affect our life. God has a lot to say about idols in the Bible. There's many verses, but I'd like to look at one verse today and then do a little bit of explaining from that point. I'd like us to look at Exodus 20, verses 1 to 5. God spoke, and these were his words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, where you were slaves. Worship no God but me. Do not make for yourselves images of anything in heaven or on earth or the water under the earth. Do not bow down to any idol or worship it, because I am the Lord your God, and I tolerate no rivals. God doesn't tolerate rivals. But what we have a situation in our culture today is where we look at that saying and we realize at the time, as they were talking about carved images, where people were actually worshiping a carved image in stone or maybe in wood, and they would look to these gods, these false gods, and God is saying, I don't tolerate rivals. And so we look at that and we think, oh, I don't have any carvings in my house and I'm not worshiping anything, therefore I have no idols. But do we? You see, idols are anything that we have put in a primary place instead of God. God's not tolerating rivals, but what we have in our culture today is not necessarily carvings where people are worshiping him, but how are we doing with children or hobbies, sports, work, money? The list can be endless. Anything that is more important to us or has rivals our relationship with God. You might be looking at what I just shared and thinking, children, oh my goodness, you're actually saying children could be an idol? Children, we are to love our children, we are to raise our children, but perhaps there's times where people take it out of balance and they almost worship their children. Their children mean everything to them. They mean more to them than God. And God needs to be first. Our relationship has to have a foundation with God being first, then our spouse, our children, and so on down the line. But God has to maintain the top priority in our life, where the influence with our relationship with God will then filter down to every other area in balance. But when we end up having maybe any of those areas taken out of balance, where maybe we love our children more than we love God, and so then we are worshiping our children or worshiping our hobbies or our sports or playing sports or watching sports, all those areas can basically totally have more focus than they ought to, and then they are an idol in our life, and we have to look at getting that in proper balance to have a right relationship with God. I remember a time myself when I was watching TV, and I was dusting the TV that week, cleaning up the house, and I was dusting the TV, and God told me that this was an idol in my life. I kind of thought I was really surprised because I didn't really think I spent a lot of time, and if I compared my watching TV to many other people I knew that watched a lot more TV, it would be like I don't even see the problem. But there was a problem because God was addressing it to me. The second week I was dusting the TV, God again told me that it was an idol in my life, and that time I stopped and I really reflected on what God was saying, and rather than justify my TV viewing compared to those that I know, I took to heart that God was telling me that it was a problem and it was an idol in my life. I repented, I got it right with God, and I haven't heard God tell me again at any point that was a problem. But I needed to be in right relationship and spending the time in seeking God and doing things that God would desire for me to do, rather than doing something that was taking too much emphasis away from him. It is something that we need to look at. It's very serious when you look at the verses that we find throughout the Bible about adultery. So take time and examine your heart. Ask God if there's anything in your life that is out of balance, where maybe it has too much emphasis and you need to realign that emphasis to ensure that God is primary over all things. And in doing so, you'll know that you have no idols before him and that he is Lord of your life. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day, and it was a pleasure being able to share with you today. Thank you.